Hey everyone, welcome to Live My Best Life, the podcast. I'm Jake, your host, and today I'm with Stacey. Hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks.
That's good.
So for everyone at home who haven't met you yet, what do you do and what's your role?
So at the moment, I am a recovery worker at one of the Richmond Wellbeing sites, and I provide support to people experiencing long-term persistent mental health issues, and I also implement recovery goals and do some administrative work for people that I key work.
Yeah, cool. So with that recovery kind of aspect of things, that's a completely different language and focus to a lot of what the NDIS has, where it's a lot of detrimental, kind of bring people down to what they can't do, and recovery is a lot about how to build people up,
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. How have you found kind of like managing in that space?
It's sometimes really challenging, and recently I came into the Living My Best Life training with you, and I learned a lot, but I can see the benefits of being able to use language in a way to support people to get what they need. But it is really challenging and really confronting for people to hear pretty detrimental and negative descriptions of themselves. So yeah, I think it's like a bit of a pull, isn't it? Like feeling quite uncomfortable having to explain to people that this is a language that we have to use, even though it's not the language that I would usually use.
So the core of empowering our consumers, which is today's topic, is around having holistic and very honest conversations from the start. What's your experience been like, having those conversations?
I really value empowerment and human flourishing, and with that, I think a really important aspect is building rapport with people to be able to have those more uncomfortable conversations with them. So yeah, for me, I really value being able to support people to live their best life and see their strengths and work on their limitations. So I really benefit from that person-centered, recovery-oriented language. So yeah.
Cool. And so you want to build that relationship to start off with, and then kind of dive into the kind of hard conversations when you have that. So you don't just meet the person and then talk about all of their, all their flaws and all the things they want to work on straight away, because that can maybe not be the best approach.
Definitely. I think, once you have that rapport with people, you can have those more uncomfortable conversations, and they know that you're coming from a genuine position of support and empowerment. So, I think relationship is everything, and having that strong relationship to begin with is going to encourage that human flourishment and empowerment, like all the way through.
Yeah, cool. Have you had any experiences where that's really helped and you've had that really strong relationship and you've had those hard conversations, but you've gotten through them in a positive way?
Yeah, definitely. So I've worked in the mental health sector for 11 years, so in a lot of different roles. And I think in residential facilities, it's so much different because you're seeing people from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 every day of the week. Sometimes you're doing night shift. So having all those different times that you see people, you kind of have a different relationship because, they often see you more than they see their family, and you often see them more than you see your family. So, having that rapport is so important to be able to acknowledge that something's not quite right or something needs to change. So definitely.
So in the people's lives that we're helping, there are people there that are spending a lot of time with them and having those good relationships. So such as yourself, you're there a lot of the time, so you've built that relationship. And so when someone new's coming in to try to assist or in any way, shape or form, help them apply for the NDIS, it's important to help rely on those strong relationships that are already there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, especially with COVID, there have been those instances where, it's an inconsistency of care. So, you really value the support that is consistent, and I think the NDIS participants also value that as well. So yeah, relationship really encourages people to like feel safe and be able to connect on a different level, and a level where they might be able to explore different aspects of their recovery. And without that, it can be really challenging to overcome the, coffee and cake side of interaction.
Yeah, there's like coffee and cake, usual coffee chats, and then there's, okay, here's a bit about me, and then there's, okay, here's all of me, but then there's past that, the vulnerable and willing to work with at that deeper level.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. So being honest and upfront once you have built that relationship also means you need to talk about if someone's not eligible for the NDIS. What is that like, and how do we empower people who maybe aren't eligible for the NDIS, and what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really tough question, actually. I haven't worked with anyone who has been ineligible for the NDIS. I guess thinking though about like early reviews and like decrease in funding would be more what I've experienced. So I think, it's just having those really tough conversations in a really safe space and building a safeguard around how we're going to support these people if they are ineligible. So ensuring that they're still receiving consistent care and support throughout their recovery journey, and looking at what other options that they have.
How do we build, people up from the organisation side of things? So there's yourself that are working with, a lot of participants. How have you been supported, or how do you build up those around you to also, really give a really good service?
I think just having those really deep conversations about consistency of care and the importance of consistency in a secure base. I think when people have experienced trauma to the point where they do get a diagnosis of mental health issues, it's important to be a secure base for them, so they feel safe to work on themselves and work on their recovery. So communication is key. Like having really clear communication with your team is really important to ensure that that consistency of care is there.
And that consistent communication, not old mate Ronnie who leaves every email for 3 weeks later.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And, making each other accountable, I guess, to ensure that, people are following up with things and there is that fluid communication that's ongoing.
Yeah, but then that accountability is for the betterment of the people that we're supporting, it is for a good cause, and where people with good heart, can come together and work pretty consistently, I believe, anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what's really important about feedback and accountability. It creates best practice. It's not about I'm not, coming at you for not answering an email. I'm coming at you because you're actually disregarding someone's care.
Yeah, and then when that's from top to bottom and everyone has that feedback, then the people we're supporting can also come to us and give that feedback so that there is no kind of stone left unturned.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, absolutely.
I found in a lot of the training that we give out, there are a lot of people who say it's really hard to be honest, and which can seem quite brutal, or there might be some clinicians that may not tick that box of permanent on someone's disability because they want to think that, being hopeful and, saying, oh, I don't want to say this is going to be lifelong, although that's a good-hearted approach, it might not always be the best approach.
Yeah, I think, it is really challenging putting labels that, seem like nothing's ever going to change on people. And from a recovery-oriented approach, that's horrific and heartbreaking. But, having that honest conversation about, like, future focus, I think being like, if we put this here, then that could mean, you do get to go to the gym, or you do get to move into independent accommodation and stuff like that. So saying it through a future focused lens and just reminding people that even if it's on a piece of paper, it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
And things do change. So for the time being, like, it's going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. We can be upset about it. Looking future focused, things might actually really change and benefit you.
Yeah, I really like that future focus. So yes, this next step might really hurt reading, certain things that a doctor may write in a clinician report, and it may suck. But then they can get through that, and that means longer term they can take steps forward and, as I said, go to the gym or go to XYZ.
Yeah, definitely.
As people supporting people either applying for an NDIS or with an NDIS plan going through review, how can we make sure that we're coming across as we want to empower them, that they're not just not another name on the list that we have to do because we're getting paid to do it?
I think having a person-centered approach is really important, and there's a really cool guy named Carl Rogers, and he was the psychologist who kind of developed the person-centered approach, and with that there's the core conditions. So that's empathy, congruence, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard. And when we interact with people and have all four conditions, then we're going to build that really strong relationship. So, acknowledging that sometimes things can be painful and reading things might be pretty uncomfortable, but then also acknowledging that people, what they're experiencing is them, and, they are the true clinician in their world, so they know deep down what is best for them. So encouraging and empowering that deep internal thought about what their strengths are is really important.
What were the 4 key attributes for being person-centered again?
So that's, I actually think I got it wrong the first time I said it. So it's empathy, congruence, unconditional positive regard, and presence. So congruence and genuineness are pretty much the same thing.
Okay, I was going to ask what congruence meant.
Yeah, so it's kind of like being aligned and attuned with someone. So being genuine, your genuine self, and having them be their genuine self. And when you get to that point in a relationship, you'll notice that is where you've met congruence.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so presence is the aspect of all of those other 3 points coming together.
Okay, so what happens if, say, you're in a working relationship with someone, helping them apply, and you realise, okay, I can't be my genuine self, or you notice that you've reached a point where you've given it your best shot, but genuinely you might not be the best person for that relationship. What would your advice be there?
I think it's important to bring that to supervision. Like, I think it's really important to always reflect on your practice to determine what's going on. And also encouraging people to see what's best for them. Because if you're feeling that way, there's probably a chance that they're feeling that way as well. So, encouraging people to make connections with other people who might be able to support them better, and referring on where necessary.
At the end of the day, we do what we do because we have a passion for the people that we support and help get onto the NDIS, or help them with their plans, or help support them in their day-to-day lives. We really care, and that's how we're in the jobs that we are. How do we help give the clients the biggest voice that they can have?
I just think that's through empowerment, and having that strength-based approach, and believing that people can recover. And I think that's a really big one. And I have said it so many times throughout my working career, is I'll hold the hope for you until you're ready to hold it yourself. So, having that unconditional positive regard, believing that, things can and do get better, and holding that hope until someone's ready to believe in themselves, and hold the hope for the future themselves. And when we do foster that environment of human flourishing is when we do see people having louder voices.
Yeah, and although what that hope looks like might be completely different to every single person. For one person, it might just be being able to get outside the house, or to even just apply for the NDIS, or to have a job. It looks different, but to hold that hope for every person you work with.
Yeah, definitely. Being really individualised is so important. And like you said, someone might just want to get out of the house, but someone else might want to, become a race car driver. So, holding that hope that, everybody can live the life that they want.
Yeah, and even, at the end of the day, they might not get all the way from A to Z. They might get to J or to M or to X or to a different point. But it's about pushing people to be able to take as many steps as they can.
Definitely. And I think when you look back at all your goals and you go, oh my gosh, look, I've ticked off 12 of them, even though I didn't get to the 26. That's an amazing feat. That's really cool.
Yeah. One thing that always stands out in my mind is that when you have such a heart to help people, there's a massive risk of burnout, whether at any role within the disability industry. When we have a heart for people, we can experience burnout. Do you have any advice or tips or experience in how to avoid burnout, to kind of help out for as long as we can?
I think it's really, it can be really challenging as NDI support workers because you're quite isolated, providing outreach support. So ensuring that you book into supervision once a month or every 6 weeks, depending on what role you're in, and ensuring that your supervisor follows through with that is really important. And that also leads to best practice and developing your skills in that space. And I guess having a really supportive team, both in your work life where you can debrief, but also in your personal life where you can ensure that you're doing the things that you enjoy doing, to create that work-life balance is so important.
Yeah, one of the sayings I kind of held on to the most is that you have to put the life mask on yourself first, and then when you can breathe, that's when you can assist everybody else around you.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good saying. Yeah.
What would your advice be for when you're supporting someone and they're not as responsive? So you're being open, you're being congruent, you're being as positive as you can be to empower them, and it's just not working. We've all had pretty rough cases where we're not necessarily not the best person, but maybe their disability support isn't where their needs are right now. What would your advice be around that?
Thinking about what they want or need in the moment is really important. And, that might be moving back towards a coffee and a chat, or even further back to a phone call. But, having that consistent care to show that you're showing up. I guess thinking about Pat Deegan when she talks about her life experience, and she had that grandmother who always used to say, do you want to come to the shops with me? And she would always say no. And then one day she goes, fine, I'll come, but I'll only push the trolley. And it was after 4 months of just come to the shops with me, just come to the shops with me. And then finally she was like, all right, I'll push the trolley. So being that person that continually shows up shows that you're genuinely there to support people. And I guess in those spaces is when we kind of look in on ourselves and go, am I providing enough care? Am I now getting demotivated because of their what seems to be disregard for support? So ensuring that we're still interacting in supervision to prevent us from, I guess, not burning out, but getting kind of resentful potentially towards people who aren't yet ready to work on aspects of their recovery that we thought they might be. So yeah, just being a consistent person in someone's life is really important. And if you get to the point where you are noticing some big emotions like resentment, to then say, hey, look, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to support you anymore, and encouraging another support worker to come in to support.
Yeah, fantastic. I haven't really thought about the idea of being okay to take a step back, but to stay consistent. So maybe it's a season where they're not ready for, X, Y, and Z, but it's more A, B, and C, and the earlier stuff like that coffee or that catch up or the phone call, and having that consistency though, and having that from not a service provider, but as for someone that's trying to help them get onto the NDIS could be amazing for their progress.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you think about the NDIS process, it's pretty daunting to think about, oh, what do I want to do in my life, or what supports will I need? So, you know, having that change is so massive. And I guess if you're living with some pretty significant mental health issues, then, you know, that's going to be even more terrifying because you're probably pretty comfortable in your little shell. So yeah, having that that person who genuinely wants to help you will then encourage people to open up and expand what they want. But sometimes people are happy with where they're at, and that's important to acknowledge as well, that, you know, that where they're at in that moment might be their comfort zone.
And it's completely within their right to say, hey, I'm okay where I am right now.
Yeah.
To still be consistent offering. However, if they're not ready to move from their rock and where they're stable, you know, that's completely okay and up to them.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Did you have any other final remarks, tips, advice, experience, anything at all that you wanted to share?
I just think probably like emphasizing the importance of empowerment, and, you know, encouraging people to, you know, look in on themselves and see their strengths, and showing people their strengths is a really great way to empower people, coming from that unconditional positive regard. So no matter what, I'll be here for you as best as I can, to support you in getting what you need to live your recovered life.
And as easy as it can be, you know, with the NDIS, to adopt their language framework, which can be really negative and detrimental, to know that's just a step and a spot in the progress, and to keep that heart of, hey, I'm going to hold the hope for you, even though it's really hard right now talking about this detriment-focused manner. I'm here for you all the way, even past this point, and you'll get past that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think, I guess, thinking about the people that have been institutionalized or been in hospital or care for a really long time, they're probably used to hearing pretty horrible things about themselves. So I guess as workers is like acknowledging, like, hey, you know, this might be a little bit re-traumatizing, but this is just for the moment.
What would you say to someone where they need to go see a clinician or a GP, and that holding the hope for them, that passion, isn't shown by a clinical person or someone else in their supportive team to help them on their way, maybe help them in applying, and that same heart isn't shown, you know, by the GP? What advice would you give them?
I think reminding people that, you know, support workers work from a different model. So the medical model looks at clinical recovery and not personal recovery. And that's okay because they do all overlap. But the way, the language that clinicians use is going to be different because they work from a different model. So just, you know, ensuring that people sit in that discomfort and get what they need from their GP or clinician, to then be able to come back into the comfort of a personal recovery approach.
Well, thank you. Like, your experience and your knowledge and your heart for people is amazing to see, and I'm sure everything that we've talked about, or at least some things, will help people, you know, empower those that they're working with. So thank you, and thank you to everyone watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya.
Thanks, Jake. Bye, everyone.